And we're going to get everybody here in a minute. But if you haven't been on the show before, what we do is at the beginning of the month, we have cold calling lives, and then we do like more cold calls with everybody. And then the second thing that we do in the month is something like this, where we review messages. And so on this one, what we're doing is we're reviewing LinkedIn messages from people who have done this, proven this before. This is what they do. We're going to walk through it, and we're going to have some fun here. And that's what we're going to go through and talk about. So as we go into this, though, a real quick question for everyone. If you could help me on a scale of 1 to 5, 5 being absolutely elite, 1 being like you're just getting started, or maybe you are a novice in this area, which is still fine. We all start out as novices. What would you rate your LinkedIn messaging skills on a scale of 1 to 5? Everybody in the chat, let's just see. We just want to see where everyone's at. All right, cool. So we got 1, 2, a lot of 1s and 2s. All right, so like, let's see, 1, 2, 4, negative 3. Why we got negatives? What? Like, I don't want to see some negatives here, guys. Come on, let's answer it honestly. Miles, 5. Okay, if you're 5, why are you here, Miles? That's the real question. Shout out to Miles. That's actually how my brother spells his name. Let's see, 3, 3, 1, 2. So we got mostly 1s and 2s here today. So our goal here, as we get everybody live, is to get you 0.5 or 1 better. 0.5 or 1 better. Harry, just that's interesting. You use ChatGPT to consider for 5. Some people, depends on actually how you use it, right? But the thing is, right, is what we're going to break down today is how you can get better at LinkedIn messages. We have some messages that are good, messages that are bad, and we have some people who are doing this on a day-to-day basis that are in the trenches. So with that being said, we're gonna dive into it. So Kyle, if you could come up on the stage as well, we're gonna dive into this. As we figure out can get Brandon sorted, but at least you're here, Kyle. So the goal here is, right, we have 3 steps that convert into 2x meetings. Each one of us have a step or a tip to give you to 2x your meetings on LinkedIn. Again, the goal for everybody here is to make you better. But again, we have to introduce the people here. So first, we want to introduce Kyle. Kyle, talk to us.
Hey, how's it going? So yeah, my name is Kyle Van Voris. My company is called Voris, and I work with B2B SaaS and service companies. We help them build a sales process, and a big part of the sales process is how you're doing outreach. And there's a lot of different methods to do that. And today we're talking about LinkedIn. I'm super excited to be here.
Awesome, man. Kyle's great. You're going to learn a lot from him. Brandon, we're still having some technical difficulties with him, so he will introduce himself later, but we will hang here on the show. I'm Morgan. My previous experience is in sales training and also pipeline generation training. I've worked with some of the top companies in the world, Slack, HubSpot, Google, Zoom, you name it. I've taught them exactly how to do this as well. And so then you all can learn that too. And so that's where my experience is going to come from today. Excited to dive into this. Before we go into this, actually, Kyle, I want to ask you a question. What is like the number one mistake that people make when they're doing LinkedIn messaging?
Well, the big one that stands out is you have to realize LinkedIn messages are like a graveyard. And the more
graveyard, that's going to get people really excited.
The more messages stay in the thread. It's like always replying to an email thread. So you got to be very thoughtful about the messages you sent out, because when you finally send something that catches a person's attention, they go there and they see that there's all of these attempts above it. It really hurts your reputation with that person, with that individual. So that's one thing that I try to encourage people to be very thoughtful about the messages you send, because you're just going to have a graveyard of failed attempts that they're going to see every single time they open your message.
Great. Okay, so we got to make sure people get some revivals here, not in the graveyard. So, okay. Kyle, I don't know if you have this data. How many messages does an executive get per day for LinkedIn, like sales messages? I'm curious if you have this data.
I don't know the averages. I can tell you I'm getting at least 5 a day.
Okay. So about 100-ish a month, probably that they're getting here. Okay, so that's what we're going up against. So if we're diving into this today, this is what we're going to learn. So y'all know we're going to talk about LinkedIn outreach tips. So all of you are going to walk away with tips on how to become better. We had a lot of 1s to 3s. So again, trying to get you 0.5 better. 2 is we're going to have live feedback on some outreach messages that we have pulled from Kyle's inbox, other people's inboxes that we're going to talk about. And then we're going to have a Q&A. But before we go into that, I just want to go ahead and share this. We're reviewing some messages. Now, if you have a great question in the Q&A, so again, this is going to be fluid. So if you have questions throughout this, you can go ahead and put it in the Q&A. We'll answer it. This is a very fluid conversation. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A. And then if you have messages that you want to actually get reviewed, you can either come on the video and screen share your messages and we'll actually talk to you live, or you can put it in the chat. So the thing is that if you do this, you have an opportunity to win a prize. All right, we gave out prizes last time: JBL headphones, some Uber Eats, I don't know, whatever you want from Uber Eats, and a North Face backpack. I wish I could apply this because I would definitely get some JBL headphones. But again, if you want the one of these three prizes, right, that you can pick for yourself, you can pick one of these three. Either one, you ask us a question, the Q&A, that's a great question, and we'll say, oh, that was an amazing question. You'll be entered into potentially winning the prize. Or you can also submit a message. You can come on the video Q&A, or you can put it in the chat. So is everybody clear on the giveaway? Just let me know in the chat, like one. Say like, hell yeah, one, I'm good. I just want to make sure everybody's good on the giveaway if you want to participate. Awesome. Okay. So the thing is, right, how we're going to go into this first is we're going to go into Kyle's tip. So Kyle, what's your top tip for LinkedIn messages?
So I'm taking this a little bit of a different angle because I know, like, Morgan, you're my goat when it comes to LinkedIn messages. I know Brandon's got some really good stuff. So I'm taking a little bit of a different angle here. My favorite way to use LinkedIn messaging is responding to people who follow me, like, or comment on the content that I produce. So I'm a big fan of creating content that's specific for the industry you sell into. And then when people engage with that content, I reach out to them and I ask you a very simple question, which is, are you here for the content, or are you looking to improve your sales team? And there's a version of that question for everybody. So if you're creating content, people are liking that content, and you sell marketing automation tool, then you can reach out to the person and say, are you here for the content, or are you looking to improve how you're running your marketing? And then I have a very back and forth conversation, almost as if it was a call, in the DMs of LinkedIn in order to book a meeting. So that's my approach. That's my tip for anybody here who is creating content. Be very intentional about reaching out to people who've engaged with you in some way. And I've had a lot of success doing that.
I think that's great. I think also as well, for, I know reps in here that maybe you're not creating content right now, a contextual thing that you can do as well is use the same thing for someone in your organization that's creating content. So that's a way that you can leverage it. But also what you can do as well is look at people in your industry that have a lot of followers and engagement and leverage their content as well. I know people have used my own content to book meetings, which at the end of the day, I should probably get some commission off that. But I know people would use my posts to reach out to people and work for them, right? So that's another thing that you can do as well. My top tip that I'm going to dive into is, I don't know if you follow me, you probably heard me say this before, is LinkedIn videos. Now, how many people are sending videos in here? Just let me know in the chat, like, yeah, I am or not. Or some people may not even know this is a thing, to be fair. So if you don't know what it is, then like that's fine too. But if you know what it is, let us know. And the thing is, I also understand that people don't want to do it. I get it because it's like not comfortable for people. I understand that. But what I've found is that I ask executives this quite often. I say, hey, look, like, how many videos have you been a part of or have you seen, right? Miles, voice notes a play here too. Videos and voice notes is my kind of top tip here, but like I'm gonna lean on videos today. I've seen that people, like, ultimately in the day don't get a lot of videos or voice notes. Like, this is very, very rare. So my top tip for everybody is, first and foremost, on LinkedIn, this is Kyle, I don't know if you do this as well. Before you do what I'm about to tell you, for every person that you connect with, send a blank connection request. I would encourage you not to actually add a note in the connection request. Now, this is against LinkedIn's rules that they give you in the beginning, but I'm telling you, if you send a blank note, again, nothing in the note to the potential client or prospect, you will have a higher acceptance rate. I'm just telling you right now, this is what we've seen to be true. This is what leads to success. So if you do this, you'll be in a way better spot. So I want everyone to take notes on that. If you aren't doing that today, you need to be doing that. Now, the follow-up to what I'm going to say is, when you do the voice note or the video, I tell people to send a video that's like 35 to 50 seconds. Your first 10 seconds is the reason of why you're reaching out. And then 30 seconds should be your value prop. 10 seconds is your call to action. And so, again, you want your video to be less than 50 seconds. That typically leads to the highest conversion, and that leads there's Brandon. We'll show here in a minute. And that typically leads to the success that you're looking for. And that is where you get the success ultimately long term. along the way. So what I would tell you all is definitely hyper focus on the 10-30-10 piece. And that's my top tip for converting more opportunities that I've seen. And then, yeah. So Steve, yeah, no note. I'm not adding anything in the note. You basically just go and connect with someone. It'll ask you if you want to add a note. You say no, and you just connect with them directly. That's how I get that high conversion. So Kyle, I don't know if you don't have anything. I don't know if you have anything on that, but that's the way I think about it.
Yeah, I think it's fantastic. I mean, whenever you can do something to stand out and show that you're like an actual real person, not just
Yeah.
either like a bot or someone in like the Philippines or something that's just doing a bunch of over and over again, like you actually stand out. There was a time, and you probably remember this too, Morgan. There's a time where personalization was like the big thing. Like, oh, take a couple things from the profile and figure out how to work it into your message, and that worked for a really long time. But now everybody's doing this at scale with AI. So like anything you can do to stand out and show that you're not just what everybody else is doing has a really big impact, because that's ultimately what you're fighting for, is to get a bit of their attention, to be able to see if what you have resonates with them.
Yeah, 100%. So I'm gonna put this up again for anybody that missed it. And a couple things, and then we'll introduce Brent here.
Let me jump in on Steve's question real quick too, because Morgan, you were talking about this earlier. No note works better, and that's just the reality. And you might think like, oh, is it going to make me see more like a bot? I don't know, but it's a way higher percentage chance of somebody accepting your LinkedIn connection request when there's no note than when there is. And in fact, I can tell you for me, I generally, if I'm looking at a connection request that comes through and I see a message on it, I'm more likely to think that person's a bot, or at least I'm more likely to think that that person's trying to sell me something, because there's some kind of message there. And I just kind of link that with somebody trying to sell me something. So I'm much more thoughtful about if I'm going to accept that connection request versus somebody without a no.
So yeah, let's dive into this one more time, just for the clarification. Kyle's 100% right. The thing is, I understand everyone's hesitation and the confusion around not sending a note. I understand. Look, I didn't even want to go this route, but when something works, it works. So we keep doing it. And so I've ran this test over 100 times with multiple reps, multiple regions, multiple personas. Like, I promise y'all, this will work. If you decide not to do it, it's fine. I'm just telling you it works. What I will say, though, is you also have to understand the psychology of human behavior. So most people that send a note that say, like, let's say, for example, they say, hey, synergies or mutual connections. To Kyle's point, that's more bot-like behavior. So now buyers have now seen the same no over and over again, and when they accept it, they get pitched, so they don't accept things with a no. Typically, that's why the no works, because if you don't come with any intention, there is no guard up. And also, as well, if your profile picture and headline are good, you have an increased connection rate across the board. So again, for those of you that are hesitant on it, I understand 100%, but I would encourage you to A/B test it. Do a 50 by 50. I promise you the blank will win high majority of the time. This is just what I've seen. For those who are asking for the framework, here it is. The first 10 seconds, the reason for the actual video. This is a video of you talking. I would not do not send a company video, because typically it's like an ad video and like it's not human. It's not going to work. Just tell you right now. You can do it, but it probably won't work. First 10 seconds is the reason for the actual why you're reaching out. I saw something on your website. I saw something on LinkedIn. I read this thing, whatever. 30 seconds is the actual value prop. Like, what are you offering this person? And then the last 10 seconds is a call to action. So that could be, are you free for 30 minutes? Would you be willing to learn more? Are you interested in a deeper dialogue, etc.? So for those who are asking for the framework, you can let me know if that's helpful. Hopefully that was a good breakdown. If you need me to say it again, I can. But that's the 10-30-10. It's the framework on how to actually send your videos that keeps it less than 50 seconds without feeling overwhelmed. So if you need that again, just let me know. I can do that. But that's the way of doing it. Okay, Paul, I'll repeat it one more time. The first 10 seconds is the reason for the video or the voice note. You need to say, hi, Paul, the reason for my video is. Don't say your name. Don't say your company, because it doesn't matter, because they can just look at your LinkedIn profile. So it's just a waste of time. So you're just going to say, hi, Paul, the reason for my video is. You need to say the reason for the video. And please don't say, hi, Paul, the reason for my video is I want to book a meeting with you. Don't do that, because that's not going to work. So You want to state the reason. 30 seconds is the value prop. You could grab it from your email, your cold call, whatever, just your value prop. And then the last 10 seconds is the call to action. Would you be open to learning more? Are you interested in deeper dialogue, etc.? It's the same for the voice note, and the video are the same. So again, if anyone needs to repeat that, let me know. And I'm pushing all your messages to the Q&A real quick. So if you have subs coming in, we're gonna review it later. So that's it on that. Is everybody clear on before we move forward and go to Brandon here? He's been waiting patiently, so we got to intro him. But before we move to Brandon, does any of you have any more questions on the framework and the connection note? Because I know this can be a lot, especially the connection note. I know people getting a tizzy about this one. But is everybody clear? Just let me know in the chat before we move on. All right. It looks like everybody is clear. All right. So here we go. Amanda, lie about what? What are you talking about? Who's lying? We don't want no liars here. So Anna, who's lying? What are we lying about? You can't be throwing out lies. Amanda, look, like I don't know. Like, I don't know what to tell you. I just have a sales background, so I've been doing this for quite some time. So maybe that's my contextual. Maybe it's a different context.
Yeah, and Morgan, I think what you said earlier is what you want to hammer home here is the data tells you what to do. So if you're sending requests and they're not accepting it, and when you send it with the note they are, then keep doing a note. But for the vast majority of people, no note is going to lead to more connections. And if that's not your reality, then don't do it that way. But the important thing here is be thoughtful about what you're doing and let the data tell you if it's working or not. And give it a shot, Amanda, or anybody who's a little concerned about the no note thing, and test it for yourself. Like Morgan said, do 50 with no note, 50 with the note, and see how many connect.
All right. So Brandon,
introduce
yourself, and then we're going to get to your top tip.
Okay, I'll introduce myself here. So I'm Brandon Jepson. I've been in sales now for 2.5 years. I'm not in the pantheon of experts here. I'm very much one of the guys in the trenches. I came from law school into sales, so this was not at all my path I envisioned in college and before then. But I decided that LinkedIn was a place where I could gather all these free nuggets. I was a webinar attendee for lots of things. I was stealing as many free resources as possible. So basically I'm following guys like Morgan and Kyle for a while, and actually not Kyle so much. I've been stalking him professionally recently. But my whole goal has been, how do I ascend from SDR with zero experience? How do I make the most noise as I do so that I can stand out? That's helped me from a personal branding perspective, but also from a sales perspective, and certainly with some of the best companies out there. I was an enterprise SDR for a year and some change, set with some of the biggest VPs. I think to date, I am the SDR at Awardco who's brought in the most closed revenue. So that's kind of my only credible leg to stand on. Otherwise, I'm just documenting what other people are doing. So that's kind of where I'm coming from with a lot of my LinkedIn takes, I guess.
Awesome. So let's dive into your top tip here, Brandon, and then we're gonna go into some Q&A. And everybody, before Brandon, you go, I see a lot of you submitting messages. We will get to the messages, so we'll get to that in a minute. But Brandon, break down your top tip, and then we'll go into breaking down these messages here.
Yeah, so I'll say that my top tip is being active on LinkedIn with your comments, and really, it really more than anything, just finding where your prospects are. This is totally aside from like a personal brand. That's certainly helpful there, but when I finally got my video to connect and could hear the audio, what I'm mostly doing before I ever send a message is I'm warming up that account. Oftentimes I don't really have anything super meaningful to contribute because a lot of people are saying, hey, we're hiring, or look, we won this award. And I don't really have a ton to say, but I'll give it a like. And then when I do have an opportunity to jump in, for example, like an HR leader recently I just connected with, she was saying how, hey, this is how I think employee engagement is going to change. Here's some struggles. And like, all I said was, this is Awardco's whole arc. That's it. she then got a voice, or then she then got a connect, no message from me, no note. And then I sent her a voice memo saying, hey, I really liked your thoughts on your post. Here's why I commented, like, this is what I'm doing. And then, insert what we were just talking about in this last segment. And I'll say it this way, like when I was coming up through sales, everyone here probably has heard of Josh Braun. He's a god in the pantheon of LinkedIn. And he talks about be a red X in a sea of white circles. And because that was one of like the first lessons you could say I learned, that's one way that I know I'm standing out for sure, because most people are just getting blasted with emails, calls. It's the same sort of messaging. Maybe it's AI. So if I take some time to be like, hey, and I have a goofy example I can share if we want, but I prospected like a medical marijuana company, and I started my camera like in a bush and pulled it out and said like, hey, just wanted to come out of the weeds. And then I kind of scratched right away. She answered, and it took me like all of 15 seconds to even think of that kind of just corny intro, but no one's really doing that. So my top tip, really like be active where your people are, but maybe it's two-part. And I had a couple of things coming into this, so it's hard to decide, but insert your personality. Like I'm a dad of almost 2. I very much tell dad jokes. You can tell by my LinkedIn. Sometimes they're terrible. My one today was very corny. I don't care. I love it. And that's me. So like I can lean into that. If you have other, fun ways to be you that no one else really can or is willing to do at scale, then you'll see success pretty quickly.
Yeah, I definitely want to call out just attempt, like think about how to be outside of the box. I think there's obviously degrees of how crazy you want to go, but
Yeah.
I think you also have to think about what was the biggest piece, right, that you want to get outside the box. So I think that's the big thing as well. So I definitely want to compliment that. So let's get into the messages, right, to see what people are doing here. Brooke asked, who's the person you mentioned? I think it was Josh Braun, right? That's who you just talked about. Yeah, Josh Braun, Brooke. Okay, cool. So let's go into some actual messages. So these are messages to Kyle. We're gonna break these down. We have a couple that are actually good, and then we'll go through y'all's Q&A as well. We'll break it down. And I see some people coming in with their messages, so we'll share and we'll go through all this. But let's just go from left to right. So let's start with this one with we're building a new calendar scheduling tool here. So for both of you, let's just talk about this LinkedIn message. What do you like? What can be improved? Audience, you can also chime in as well. Again, we're just reviewing real life messages and going through it.
So maybe I can start with what I like. I like how it's simple, it's short, it really gets to the point. And then there's a clear something in it for me that like I get a free lifetime subscription, and they might end up building features that I want, which I guess is kind of cool. So I like that part of it, just to say the positive.
Okay, Brandon, what do you see?
We're looking at strictly the very first top left, or can I go on
the top left.
Yeah, no, I like that they come with value first. And I think you can think of it as you can make a deposit or a withdrawal, and withdrawals are more, I'm asking for things. Here they come and they make a deposit and say, hey, here's a free thing. Or, people are doing this with like gifting and things like that. Those are exciting more than, maybe some of these other ones we could talk about.
Yeah, I would say the free, I think you think about it, right? The free lifetime subscription, it could be good as a PS, but maybe I would actually have a time barrier on that. I guess kind of go into like what to improve, but like I probably would like lead into that. But also the feedback is interesting because like it's obviously not as much friction. Like it's like, oh, it's feedback, whatever, right? It ends up being a little bit more loose. I think those are two things that I do like. But next thing is like people probably are looking at this like how to improve. So Kyle, now we're going to come back and say, what would you have improved here? Did you respond to this actually question? So
no, not at all.
Okay. So what would they have done? What could they have done here to get you to respond?
New calendar scheduling tool. I have no idea what problem that's actually solving for me, and I don't need a new calendar scheduling tool. So it's too broad. I mean, it literally could just be a new Calendly competitor. That's what I'm kind of thinking it is. It could also be something super cool. If I knew a little bit more, I'm more likely to try. I get a ton of messages like this, by the way, like, oh, try our product. And This one was pretty close to being good. It's just when I hear something like new calendar scheduling tool, I just put you in the box of stuff I already have that I'm paying for, and it's not super motivating. There's $15 a month. Like this isn't a big thing for me. So anyway, that's what I would improve is tell me the problem that you solve or figure out a way to make me realize what bucket to put you in.
Brandon, what do you see in here?
Yeah, I typically, as much as possible, want to start with a you-oriented question or statement. So as soon as it's like, hey, we're building a new tool, it's like, okay, that could turn off a potential buyer. Like if I was saying this to Kyle, I maybe would go for something like, and again, to your point, it is, $15 scheduling thing, but I'd say something like, you might have this issue with scheduling, and then insert like a value about how they're helping their persona, save more time or schedule more easily, that kind of thing. That's a little more snappy and crisp, I guess, than like, hey, we're doing this, we're blah, blah, blah. So.
Yeah, I think I know we're all saying it right. Is like even here, right? Let's agree, no one cares about what we're doing. They're only interested if we solve the problem or not, right? So I think the main premise on this one is you immediately on that first sentence want to definitely call out like what is the reason why this new calendar scheduling tool would be relevant, and then what's going on there. I think that's the biggest piece, right? It's just missing that first sentence of why does it even matter about this new scheduling tool? What would happen there? So I think, sentiment the same as what we're saying here. I think that would be like that would be like the main thing that I would say on that one. So, okay, we've got the top left. We're going to go to the other ones. Top right, same thing, just so that we can have quicker rotations because I'm getting more and more Q&As on the messaging. So I want to get as much through as we can from the audience. So again, be patient, everybody. We're going to get to that. So on the top right here, let's just go through. Kyle, what did you like here the most? What would you like to improve? And then Brandon, we'll go to you. What did you like the most here? What would you like to improve? We'll do the same thing for the bottom message and we'll move on to the next one. So we'll inverse order. Brandon, what do you like? One thing you like about this, one thing that it can improve in the top right.
Mine might be tied together. So I like the intent, but there's a good chance that they could have done a little bit of research and figured out, like this kind of reads like, who could I connect with? But then it also asks some questions. So maybe they could have said, I noticed this person's over like, and I'm not totally sure what's going on here. Do you have an interesting product, services, venture? But I think they could connect some dots on their own more quickly. So I like that they're starting maybe to go down that road, but then in tandem with that, this starts to really fall apart towards the end. Like now it's a questionnaire a little bit for Kyle and like way too much to think about. It's a little too muddy as to what's going on. And then, he's trying to probably sort through these as quickly as possible, looking for value. So I think loading that back end up with like, what are you passionate about? Do you have blah, blah, blah? Like that in my mind, I'm not even a CEO. I'm just a sales rep, but like, I would be like, whoa, okay, see ya. Like that's too much to think about right now. So,
yep. Okay. Steve also is like, I see you in the comments, Steve. Kyle, what do you got to say here?
Yeah, look, I like that it's short. That's clearly the LinkedIn messaging meta right now is to try to keep things super short, which I appreciate, especially when you're trying to go through a bunch of these. But I'll echo what Brandon said. Like I'm about to talk to you about what I'm passionate about. Like I like stand-up comedy and Magic the Gathering. Like, what do you want to talk? It makes no sense to me. So it's just a little too heavy, and I feel like there's an intent here. So I'd rather you just tell me what the offering is, and I'll determine if it's something that solves a problem that I have, versus you trying to like first get me to talk about, I don't know, the passions, and then we get there. So anyway, it's just not direct enough for me.
Yeah, I feel like so. Best practice here. I don't think everyone here probably is not doing this, but I think there's something to be mindful of is that like, if you want to ask a quick question, you should just go ahead and figure out what they're passionate about and then dive into it. Like this would be a good conversation starter if you did some research on their profile and said, hey, quick question for you. I saw this in your profile. Here's the question. And then it's super simple. That stalker's vibes, that would have been a good way of going about it. But to this point, like it's too vague. And like last thing here, right? And then we'll move on is when you all write messages, which you all know, but just a good reminder on this for LinkedIn messages, is we do it. Like there's so many people going through so many different motions and there's so many things going on across the board and there's so many messages coming through. You want to make sure that you have something that's super quick for people to answer. And if it's something that they have to think about too, and the comments are crazy. If you have to think about something on a too deep of detail, the person's just going to move on because like, oh, that's a what am I passionate about? Like I got to think about this a little bit. Move on. So if it's easy to answer, you'll be able to move faster. So just wanted to call that out. I think the last one we don't have to give too much feedback on. I think that like the main thing is like I guess my question is for you all, and then we'll move on to the next ones that are good ones, and then we'll move on to some other people. Like, do you feel like asking people questions in the DM is a good way of going out, or do you feel like that actually just wastes time because they have to think about it? So I'm actually just questions in general, because both of these are questions. So I'm curious on what y'all's perspective on that, and the audience too. Like, do you all ask questions in the DM? Does that help you when you're booking meetings? I'm just curious from your two's perspective.
I'm a big question asker in the DMs. It works very well for me. Not in this format, obviously. I try to ask things that are actually relevant. I try to make the DMs more of a back and forth conversation. But again, I'm reaching out mostly to people who interact with me in some way. So it makes more sense for me to ask questions. But also, I don't find a problem with asking questions like what that message was trying to do. It's just like there's nothing wrong with saying like, hey, can you answer a question for me? And give them the question.
Yeah.
But you'd want to lead into it with like, hey, I'm asking for a favor. So I mean, people do things all the time. It's just a weird approach to structure it like that. But I like questions for the most part.
Okay. Brandon, what's your take here?
Yeah, I do too. I'll say two things. One, I would maybe just defend the bottom message if it was a voice memo. That was maybe the good start to a voice memo. Like, hey, Mr. Kyle, can I call you that? Like, then jump in. Maybe that's a little more.
Yeah.
I probably wouldn't do that, but you could have some room to play with that. And so I would just improve it that way. The other way, I do like to ask questions. I like to make it super easy to connect dots, which is something I've said already. But for example, if I can say like, this is a persona-based problem. I understand personas in the HR world for employee recognition are different for C-suite all the way down to managers. So if I could say something like, managers are dealing with blank. That's why we're doing blank. If we could help you improve by XYZ, would that be worth a chat? And like, I like to save my question around like, what if we could help improve this? And is it worth a chat? So like, I want to make it super easy to read and make a decision on their end, yes or no. Sometimes maybe they don't answer, but they at least can very quickly cipher through all the information.
I'm definitely a huge fan of that. And yeah, I definitely agree with this too. Great tip here from Brandon, like warming it up, commenting if you can, getting in front of them big, because when you message them, you're like, oh, I know who you are. And like that's essentially how I book a lot of my meetings. It's like, oh yeah, I've seen you before. And like it just creates that familiarity. So okay, we got a couple things here. So Brandon, this is actually looks like this is just funny. I gotta know the backstory on left and honestly, right? So these are two messages that we actually are good messages, because we're not gonna just give you just bad messages and just roast people. Like, we're not here to do that. We're gonna give you some good ones. We'll go to some ones in the audience as much as we can. We'll talk about who wins the prize here and have some fun. But so far, let us know in the chat if this has been helpful for you on the tips that we're sharing. Hopefully, for my 1s through 3s, you feel like you're at least getting 0.5 better. That's literally all I can ask for. All right. So that's my hope. So everyone who was 1 to 3, if you got 0.5 better so far and you found this helpful, let us know in the chat. We just want to make sure we're heading in the right direction. But these two examples, right? Are good examples. So Brandon, this is something that you actually are doing in the trenches as a rep as of today. So talk us through, what are you doing here and what happened?
This is awesome.
Yeah, what happened here?
So let me give this quick context. This quarter currently is a rough quarter for me because I've stopped doing a lot of these things that I was doing earlier in the year. And there's lots of ways we could break that down. Point being, this has worked really well and being targeted. So I'm not doing this with everyone. This in particular, to a guy named James, Fortune 500 VP, like the guy to target for enterprise SDRs. This is like the golden prospect. My enterprise account executive that I was assigned to, who's one of our top performing reps at the company, he was like, hey, I cannot get a hold of this guy. I'll give you 50 award code points, which is $50. And I'll send them to you if you can get this guy to talk to you. So what I did was I went and found him on LinkedIn. Luckily, he posted. So I started warming him up, and I found out he does CrossFit. I've done a little bit of CrossFit in my life, but I lift every morning. So like pretty quick connection for me, just genuine connection. So what I ended up doing was he'd post about CrossFit. I said, dude, great program, blah, blah, blah. Above that message, it's me just asking about his program. A couple days later, I actually made him this video in the style of one of those Dodge Ram commercials where it's like, and I was like,
what in the world? I'm just laughing how well this is done.
This was totally like my masterpiece, and it was kind of unhinged and a little bit cringy, but like 50 points, I'll do a lot for 50 points. So filming myself like this wasn't a big deal. And I basically was just like, the difference between CrossFit, good CrossFit, and good employee recognition, blah, blah, blah. And anyways, I made like a weak bridge over to our value proposition, but like he totally responded and he's like, I loved that. That's not me. It's actually this person. I was able to help get that handed off to my AE. And I think he's still kind of working on it. So anyways, the point is like, you can play the long game and don't be afraid of that. Like if you can have someone answer, there's this urge to like just go right in and chase the car if you're the dog kind of thing. Give it some time and be a little strategic and say like, hey, thanks for the connect. My go-to right now is the Michael Scott bowing. Whenever I connect, I just send that GIF and I say, thanks for the connect. People like it. And then a couple of days later, I say, hey, by the way, and I do a voice memo, I do a video, and whether it's yes or no, whatever, like be detached from the outcome. But I get way more responses than having to make 400 dials or, a bunch of emails. So I would weave that in. That's one bucket of outreach you can use. Still continue your other buckets of outreach, but that when you have the opportunity, just jump on it.
So I feel like I have to see this video now. And the thing is, we don't have it queued up, but like we'll see if we can get it for this. If not, Brandon, is it okay if we send it in the follow-up email?
Totally.
Okay, cool. We'll send a follow-up email so y'all can see it because I know y'all want to see it. Like this whole entire thing, I'm like, I would 100% respond to find that. Like Kyle, have you ever seen the video like that before?
Yeah, I mean, not this.
This is to another level. This is like videos. Cinema.
But what I love about this too, Brandon, is he didn't respond immediately, and you followed up with him. And that's like when I saw this, I'm like, oh, this is the realest thing of all time. Because sometimes you spend all of this time and effort either making a video or like crafting the perfect outreach, and you send it, and it's just crickets on the other end. And you ended up getting him to respond. You mentioned with the follow up here. Your follow up's really funny. Like, yeah, this is just awesome.
Yeah,
this is so good.
This is for those who are looking at this. This is worth your effort the higher up the totem pole you go. So I'm not necessarily doing this for like in my world, like HR generalists and managers, they would probably love this, but like it's maybe too much firepower. Maybe unless maybe they're the last person I can reach out to. So like, don't just go crazy with every single person at scale. Like it'll maybe burn out a little bit. And certainly you don't have to make videos like this. It was definitely more fun for me than anything else. But like people will see it. It stands out, far above what's going on right now.
All right, y'all. So I don't know if anyone can top Brandon in terms of this outreach. If you can in the chat, let us know. But this is extremely creative. So Kyle, this is a message you received from someone on the right. So talk to us about what happened here. Did you reply? What did you like about this one? Because you told me you really liked it, but talk to us.
Totally. So I did reply, and it's because it speaks specifically to a problem that I have. First of all, I do use Superhuman. So he said, I saw that you use Superhuman. That could be totally automated. It probably is, because he just knows that if you use Superhuman, you're going to get his value prop really fast. And his value prop is LinkedIn DMs like Superhuman, which is a very fast way to get through your email, fast way of getting through your LinkedIn DMs. And if you manage DMs a lot, like I do, and maybe you do, Morgan, Brendan as well, you know how difficult it is to use LinkedIn's inbox feature. So this is a tool that you can use to manage all of that. That spoke to me immediately, and I clicked through it. And what he did that I thought was so good is he's like, you use this thing. So now I'm thinking, okay, yeah, Superhuman. We do the exact same thing, but for LinkedIn DMs. This is what I'm building. You open it, checking it out. I clicked on on Condo, his little link here. I went and looked at the solution. The guy's name is Mitchell, and I was like, "Oh, this is great. Sure, yeah, I'll check it out." And now it's cheap. It's like $15 a month, and I manage all my DMs through there, and it's way faster and easier than ever before. So I think it's fantastic, and it really spoke to me, and I took action on it.
Perfect. So my hope is that you guys are seeing two different ways of doing this.
Yeah.
I find that a lot of people, when we talked about videos, right, and voice notes, I feel like a lot of people may be hesitant around that. Completely fine. But now you have an example of what you can do on the left. And on the right, you can see you have a written example. So now what we're going to do is we're going to go through people's examples that they put in here. We have 15 minutes left. We're going to go as fast as we can here because we wanted to break things down. I see a lot of questions coming through. I'm going to answer them in the text, but we're going to just throw up on the screen. Quick fire for you all real quick. One thing that you like about a message, one thing you wanted to improve, we're going to go through as many as we can in the last 15 minutes. Again, hopefully you all are enjoying this so far. So here's the message. This is a link to message. So Kyle, we'll go back to you. What do you like about it? What can it improve? These are people in the audience watching. How can they get better here?
Sorry, I'm still reading it.
No, you're good. You're good.
Oh, okay. I'm a supply chain guy. I used to run the inside sales team at a large supply chain software company. So this is my world. Okay. Now I'm assuming the formatting is just messed up because it's in this. I'm assuming you have a lot of breaks here.
Yep.
Look, I think it's fine. I actually think it's a good starting point. I think you mentioned mentioning like the higher level of what is the thing with supply chain that I happen to know that you might run into if you're sending messages like this is it's incredibly complicated and very broad. And what I have found being successful is to get really specific on one thing. And that's the only recommendation I would have here. Because the reality is I'm reaching out to see if a data-driven optimization of your supply chain to make better informed planning decisions is a priority for your company. Of course it is. It always is. That's like their number one thing is making sure that their planning is accurate. So what I would actually convert that to is some more about do you run into this challenge? And then from there, you can go, okay, I have a solution to that challenge. That's the only recommendation I'd make here. I'd be curious to hear what you guys think.
Brandon, talk to us.
So I'm not a fan of Hope This Finds You Well in general. It's just too similar to most outreach. And I actually have a series of memes poking fun at it. It's fine. It's fine if everything else is relevant. I actually sold supply chain management software at the startup where I got into sales. So something I might say is like pain first, like most supply chain managers right now feel like they're managing with, spreadsheets and duct tape. What if we could make a more data-driven optimization of your supply chain? Like kind of rework that to have a little bit more of a flow. And I think about it like traffic. Like I never want my reader to have to slam on the brakes and be like, wait a minute, like what did that just say? Or what did that mean? So I like it overall. And I would imagine the format is probably just different on this chat. But maybe just kind of reworking it and writing with an eraser a little bit so that it's very clear, like the pain, the persona, and showing the persona, and then the ask of like, what if we could help with this, or that sort of thing. Like, is this on your radar at all? It kind of gets them thinking about, is it on my radar at all? They'll probably tell you no if they're not using spreadsheets and duct tape. A lot weren't. So that's probably my feedback.
All right, great feedback. My hope is that this was helpful. Okay, cool. So make sure that was helpful feedback for you. Thanks for submitting it and putting yourself out there. And then we'll go to the next one. And I'll say, I also am a hope all as well. Let's get rid of it. That's like my crusade because I think that you can just get right into it. I don't think it's necessary. It doesn't help you convert the meeting. My last bit of advice is literally look at your messages. I do this myself. I read it out loud and say, does this sentence help me convert the meeting? And if it doesn't, I get rid of it. Hope all is well does not help you convert the meeting from what I see. Like no one's gonna be like, wow, thanks for helping me well. I'm gonna book now. Typically that doesn't happen. So that's why I say let's just remove it. Okay, so let's go to some other ones. Okay, here's another one. So here's some Miles. Y'all can read it real quick. Brandon, we'll start with you, and then we'll go to Kyle. Steve, yeah, everything literally I construct a message on is 10-30-10 because every message you write, you need to have a reason, you need to have a value prop based on the reason, and you have a call to action. So to answer your question, yeah, every single thing I think about is that same thing.
Cool. So I'll say this. So just on this last message in this one, I actually never really say like hi blank. I just launch right into it. I think the last time I read about it, the mobile view of a message is like 84 characters or something small. So like my goal is I want to be as relevant as possible, as quickly as possible. That's a little bit of a small point on this, but just wanted to shout that out. For me on this one, with the question of do you currently use any FSM software to track operations, I would be curious to know what differentiates job logic from what they could be currently using. Because if I read this as an operations person, I'm probably saying yes, and then I don't necessarily know. I don't really know what's going to be different, what's going to be valuable if I take a call, unless I'm just like comparing apples to apples here. And then you're kind of in a feature battle in my mind. So if you could say like, people are switching from their current FSM softwares to JobLogic because we help solve blank, like that'll be a little more punchy in the messaging. Overall, pretty good. I would consider this like a warming email rather than one I would expect to get more engagement or a reply.
Kyle, talk to me.
Yeah, I'll in the same vein, I'll give you a bit of a kind of a way of thinking about questions. I do this a lot with cold calls, especially, and I think it applies very much to a LinkedIn. I think of, okay, I'm going to ask this question. What is the ideal response to this question? I'm unsure what the ideal response is to this question. Probably no, it would be ideal. And then I go, okay, if the ideal response is no, then does the rest of the message make sense? Could be very useful. We do all of these things. I'm not sure. I'm medium if the rest of the message actually is helpful if they're not currently using that type of solution. Maybe we need to be more problem centric. But then what if the answer is yes? I would imagine a lot of the people you reach out to are using some kind of software to track operations, whatever that means. So if the answer is yes, does the rest of this kind of going to Brandon's point, does the rest of this put our best foot forward to somebody who's saying yes? And that is obviously no, because we're not talking about how we are different. So a question like this, it's like, okay, my best case scenario is they say no, and I have an okay follow-up to that. My worst case scenario is if they say yes, and I have not a very good follow-up to that. So we've kind of locked ourselves with that question. So that's how I would think about it. Is think through the questions you're asking, go, okay, what do I want them to reply, and craft the message for the desired reply. That way you're optimizing for what you want to happen. Or you go the other way and say, most people are going to say, no, it's not desired, but that's just what's going to happen. And then you optimize for that.
Hopefully that advice was helpful. Again, I'm doing rapid fire. I'm moving quick. Here's another one we have. So this is from Kaylee. So Kyle, since you were just already talking, you're already revved up. So let's go back to you. I know you got to get a chance to read it. And then as we wrap up, everybody, and they're looking through this, make sure to follow Kyle and Brandon on LinkedIn. If y'all want to share that action real quick, let them know where to find you, and then we'll go over this right here.
Okay. I think this. So I do like mentioning other brands that you've worked with. I think that's good. I'm not sure what searching for Elsa, hey Elsa is. Maybe that's the subject line, Morgan.
Yes, I believe that's the subject line. Correct.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, okay, so, confirmed. It is the subject line.
Okay, cool. Yeah. All right, here's my favorite. So I'm going to go in email territory here. When it comes to subject lines, I try to make them internal sounding, something that their coworker would send to them. Searching for Elisa is not something that their coworker would send to them. So that's the first thing. Like for this email, I would probably make the subject line organic search, because that might be what their coworker would send to them. So that's just a subject line tip. And otherwise, like I would first like to give the person context to the problem that we're solving. You've heard me say that a lot. Like I'm very problem oriented when I'm thinking through my outreach. I like the big names. I think that's great. But I would be more clear about the problem and less about who you work with, because this email is very like, oh, we work with this type of team and this type of team. And you don't mention the problem to the very end, which is the squeeze when it comes to dedicating time and resources to SEO. Like, is there a squeeze? I'm not sure if there's a squeeze. Like, what exactly are we solving here? And I want to qualify that they have that problem. That's how I think about it.
Brandon, talk to us.
Yeah, I resonate with a lot of that. I'll say right off the bat, searching for Elisa, that makes me think that someone maybe recommended Elisa. If that's the case, call it out immediately. That's a super powerful play to be like, hey, chatted with Morgan about X problem. We're helping Macy's, Target, and Walmart, blah, blah, blah. Is this worth a chat? Like, I really like this email. I think you could probably rearrange a couple of things, keep the problem in mind as you do so that messaging highlights it. But I do like the credibility statement, like we're helping Macy's, Target, and Walmart. Like that's a heavyweight statement in my opinion.
All right, we got time for one more, but before that, can you two let people know where they can find you if they want to continuously get advice from you?
Yeah, real quick, actually, I have one more piece of feedback on this one.
Go ahead.
I would actually say, hey, Lisa, have you wondered how Macy's, Target, and Walmart have done so well with organic over the past 5 years? We're the ones behind it. I would probably do something like that. Anyway, you can find me on LinkedIn, Kyle Van Voorst. I just wanted to slip that one in there.
Wait, we got you. Brandon, where can they find you?
Yeah, you can find me on LinkedIn, Brandon Jepson. That's basically all right now.
All right. Last one. We're going to go through this. And if we did not get to you, I'm sorry due to time, but hopefully, again, other people's feedback is helpful for you moving forward. Brandon, we'll go to you first. Then we'll go to Kyle. We'll talk about the wrap up here and we'll move on from there.
Okay. So I'll say this as I'm looking at it, just because we're going quick. Something I think about is why, what, how in that order. Why does this matter? What is going to happen if they take a call or whatever? And how is that going to help them? So I like that. I like that it's like we're recently partnering with other brands. I do like this a lot as I'm trying to speed read through it and talk about it.
You're good.
I probably imagine this would have like a bullet point of like, we enhance data, monetization strategies, ensure this. Like if you could even use ChatGPT, like if you could streamline that sentence and make a really like powerful one sentence value statement of how this is going to change their life or make them more awesome as they do their job, it might just condense the value right off the bat. But I don't have my best thinking hat on, I guess, as I'm doing both speaking and reading, but I like it.
Kyle, buzzer beater.
Yeah, I would get right to the point here. We recently partnered with a couple of AP and spend analysis software providers. None of that really matters. It's, do you want to monetize your B2B spend data? It's in really high demand by institutional investors. Maybe they thought about doing that before. Maybe something they hadn't considered yet, but they have a whole bunch of this data, right? So I would just make that sentence very direct to them and either make it in a question format, have you considered doing this? Or just say like, we'll help you monetize it. I think these bullets are okay, but do any of those matter? Like they either want to monetize their B2B spend data or they don't. So I honestly would probably cut this all to one sentence. I would test this. When I would test it, I would chop all of this down and it would literally be like, Kevin dash, have you considered monetizing your B2B spend data? We've done this for a bunch of others and I wanted to check in with you. That's probably what I would test, something like that, a little better version of that.
Really, really fast. Paige asked, could you give us some examples of alternatives to open to?
Is this on your radar? Are you opposed to check it out? Am I totally off base? Some of those.
That's a good one. It's just totally off base. I like that one a lot because then they'll guide you on the right path psychologically. So, okay, y'all. As we wrap up, we do have again. I'm just going through the emails that we saw. The two emails that I think with just small adjustments can be immediate fire up top of everything else we talked about. We're going to give the giveaway options and Becca on the Cognism side will reach out to you, Eric, and then also as well, Kaylee, shout out to you. You'll have the giveaway awards. So Becca will reach out to you directly to figure out which one do you want. So we'll make sure they give that to you. Everyone else, my hope is that you are now feel 0.5 points better. That's like I said, that's all I can ask for. So that is my hope, is that you all found this to be helpful from Brandon's creative genius of whatever he's cooking up over there. Like he might need come back around the session itself. We might need a round two of both these people. And Kyle just give you the practical advice on what to actually do here from someone who's getting messages himself. My hope is that you got both perspectives to be better. So again, we hope to see you on the next show. Hopefully you all enjoyed it, and we'll see you all on the next one.